The hall was already full long before the evening truly began. Soft golden lights fell from the chandeliers, spreading a gentle glow across the polished marble floors. Every surface seemed to shine. Crystal glasses clinked softly as people raised them in celebration. Expensive perfume floated in the air, mixing with the smell of fresh flowers placed carefully on every table. Men in dark, perfectly fitted suits stood with relaxed confidence. Women in elegant, shining dresses smiled as they spoke. Small groups formed everywhere, their laughter loud and effortless. Their voices filled the space, echoing off tall walls decorated with fine paintings and delicate carvings. This was a place made for people who were used to being seen, people who were comfortable being noticed, people who expected attention. Near the edges of the room, moving carefully between the tables, was the waitress. She did not shine. She wore a simple black uniform that blended into the background. Nothing about her clothes caught the eye. Her shoes were clean, but clearly worn from long hours of standing and walking. Her hair was neatly tied back, not for fashion, but because it was required for work. She moved quietly, smoothly, as if trying not to disturb the air around her. Her eyes stayed lowered most of the time, not because she felt small, but because she had learned that, in places like this, it was easier to exist without being noticed. Looking up too much invited attention. Attention often came with sharp words or impatient looks. As she passed one table, someone snapped their fingers without even turning their head. At another table, a guest waved an empty glass in the air, eyes still locked in conversation with someone else. She nodded politely. She collected empty plates. She refilled drinks with steady hands. She whispered soft apologies when someone felt she was not fast enough. No one asked her name. No one wondered where she came from. No one cared how long her day had been to the guests. She was just part of the service, like the chairs, like the tablecloths, like the soft music that was supposed to be playing. Yet inside her, there was a noise louder than the room itself. She had been working since early morning. Her feet hurt with every step. Her shoulders felt heavy, stiff from carrying trays and bending again and again. But that was not what tired her the most. What weighed on her lived deeper inside, something she carried quietly every day. As she walked past the front of the hall, her eyes lifted for just a brief moment. There it was, the piano. A large black grand piano sat under the warm lights, placed carefully at the center of attention. Its surface was so polished that it reflected the glow of the chandeliers above. The lid was open, as if inviting someone to play. It looked important. It looked respected. It looked alive. She slowed her steps without meaning to. Her fingers tightened around the tray she was holding. Her chest felt tight, like something inside her had suddenly woken up. The piano was supposed to be played that night. Everyone knew it. A famous performer had been announced weeks ago. The guests had spoken about it earlier, bragging about how rare it was to hear such talent in person. Some had come just for that reason, but the seat at the piano was still empty. As time passed, the guests grew louder. Some checked their watches again and again. Others leaned back in their chairs with annoyed expressions. A few laughed and made sharp jokes about the delay. The waitress heard it all as she moved through the room. She kept working. Still, every time she passed the piano, her heart reacted in a way she could not control. Her breathing changed. Her steps slowed. Her eyes drifted back to it. Again and again, memories stirred quietly inside her. She remembered a small room from years ago. A room with peeling paint and a narrow window. A piano that was old and out of tune, with keys that stuck if pressed too hard. She remembered sitting there alone, practicing late into the night. Her fingers would hurt, but she kept playing. She stopped only when the neighbors knocked on the wall, angry about the noise. Back then, the piano was not decoration. It was her voice. It was how she spoke. When words were not enough, but life had other Plans. Bills came first. Family needs came. First thought there was never enough money for lessons. Never enough time for practice. Slowly, dreams learned how to stay quiet. Music became something she carried inside instead of something she shared with the world. She told herself she did not miss it. She told herself this job was enough. Yet standing there, in that shining hall, with that piano waiting under the lights, those lies felt thin and weak. A sharp voice broke her thoughts. Where is the performer? The manager stood near the front, phone pressed tightly to his ear. His face was tense. His jaw was clenched. He paced back and forth, nodding, then shaking his head. The guests noticed their impatience grew. Some laughed louder, pretending not to care. Others complained openly. One guest muttered that the event was poorly planned and not worth the time. The waitress moved past them, collecting empty glasses. Her hands were steady, but her chest felt tight. She could feel the tension in the air, thick and uncomfortable. She overheard the manager speaking quietly to another staff member. The performer was not coming. There had been a problem. There was no backup plan. The piano would remain silent, or so everyone thought. Without music, the hall felt different. The laughter sounded forced. The spaces between conversations felt awkward. People shifted in their seats, unsure what to do next. The waitress returned to the service area and placed the glasses down carefully. She leaned against the counter for just a moment and closed her eyes. Her heart was beating fast. She knew she should stay where she was. She knew the rules. Staff did not touch the piano. Staff did not step into the spotlight. People like her did not belong at the center of the room. She opened her eyes and looked back toward the hall. The piano was still there, waiting. Her hands tingled. Her fingers felt alive in a way they had not felt in years. She pressed them lightly against the edge of the counter, remembering the feel of keys beneath them. She told herself no. She told herself this was foolish. But the noise in her chest only grew louder. She took a deep breath. One step, then another. She walked back into the hall, carrying nothing this time. No tray, no plates, just herself. Some guests noticed her moving toward the front. A few frowned, confused. Others barely looked up. Someone whispered, then laughed. What is she doing? She felt every eye that turned toward her. Her face grew warm. Her legs felt heavy. Each step felt longer than the last. She reached the piano. For a moment, she stood there unsure. The room buzzed with quiet curiosity. Conversations slowed. The manager noticed her and froze, his mouth slightly open in shock. She could still turn back. No one had stopped her. Her heart pounded. She placed one hand on the edge of the piano. It was smooth, cool, familiar. The touch alone almost broke her. She remembered practicing in the dark so she would not disturb anyone. She remembered being told that music was not a real future. She remembered choosing work over lessons, responsibility over passion. The piano did not judge her. It simply waited. She pulled out the bench and sat down. A wave of whispers moved through the room. Some guests laughed openly now. A few shook their heads. One person scoffed, clearly amused. The waitress straightened her back. She placed her feet carefully on the floor. Her hands hovered above the keys. She closed her eyes. In that moment, the hall disappeared. There were no rich guests, no manager, no rules, no labels. There was only her and the piano. She took one slow breath. Then her finger pressed down on the first key. The first note hung in the air. It was soft. So soft that at first, some people were not even sure they had heard it. A few guests blinked, unsure if the sound came from the piano or from their own imagination. But the room felt different immediately. The laughter stopped halfway through a breath. A glass paused just before touching the table. A voice cut off in the middle of a sentence. Left unfinished and forgotten. The sound was not loud, yet it reached every corner of the hall. It moved through the space gently, like a quiet question asking everyone to listen. The waitress played the second note, then the third. Her fingers moved slowly, carefully, as if she were testing whether this moment was real or just another dream she would soon wake from. Her hands felt light, but also steady. The piano answered her touch with warmth. Each key responded as if it had been waiting for her all along. The whispers faded. One by one, heads turned toward the piano. Conversations fell apart without effort. People leaned forward without realizing it, their bodies reacting before their minds could. The music was simple. There was nothing flashy about it. No fast movements meant to impress. No sharp turns meant to surprise. But there was honesty in every note. And that honesty pulled the room into silence. The waitress opened her eyes. For a brief second, fear rushed back into her chest. She saw the faces watching her. Some were confused, as if trying to understand what they were hearing. Some were shocked, surprised that such sound could come from someone they had not even noticed before. Some still carried doubt, waiting for her to fail. Her hands trembled, her breath caught. Then she remembered why she was there. She was not playing for them. She was playing because she needed to. She let her shoulders relax. She allowed her breath to slow. Her fingers grew stronger, more confident. The music flowed more freely now, rising and falling like a quiet conversation between her heart and the piano. The sound filled the hall, not loudly, deeply. It settled into the room instead of pushing against it. It wrapped around the listeners instead of demanding attention. A woman near the front lowered her phone, forgetting why she had lifted it in the first place. The screen went dark as her hand slowly dropped to her side. A man who had been smiling moments ago felt his expression change without knowing why. His smile faded, replaced by a strange heaviness in his chest. The music carried emotion that words never could. It spoke of long days and longer nights, of dreams set aside without goodbye, of quiet strength that grows when no one is watching, of choosing duty again and again when the heart wants something more. The manager stood frozen near the wall. The stress that had filled his face earlier slowly faded. In its place came disbelief, then something close to respect. He had spent the entire evening trying to control the room, trying to impress the guests, trying to fix problems with words. Now, the room was completely still, and the one who had done it had not said a single word. No one interrupted, no one laughed. Now, no one dared to speak. The piano notes moved gently through the air, touching something hidden inside each listener. Some guests shifted in their seats, suddenly uncomfortable with their own thoughts. Others felt a tightness in their throat they could not explain, a pressure behind their eyes they did not expect. The waitress did not notice any of it. Her world had grown small again. Just her and the piano. Her fingers remembered patterns her mind had nearly forgotten. Old habits returned, smooth and natural, like meeting an old friend after many years apart. She played with care, but also with courage. She did not rush the moment. She let the silence between notes speak as loudly as the notes themselves. Each pause meant something. Each breath mattered. Oh, tears slipped down someone's cheek then. Another. No one pointed it out. No one felt embarrassed. It was as if the room had silently agreed to be honest for once. When the final note came, it did not end sharply. It did not announce itself. It simply arrived, gentle and calm. Then it faded slowly. Gently, the sound drifted upward, blending into the golden light above, until it disappeared completely. Silence followed. Not the awkward silence from before. This silence was full, heavy, respectful. It pressed softly against everyone's chest. For a moment, no one moved, no one clapped, No one spoke. The waitress sat still, her hands resting lightly on her lap. Her chest rose and fell as she tried to steady her breathing. Her heart was still racing, but not from fear, from release. She waited for laughter. She waited for anger. She waited for someone to tell her she had crossed a line. Nothing came. Then one person stood. The sound of the chair moving broke the silence. A single clap followed, slow and steady. It echoed through the hall, clear and strong. Another clap joined it, then another. Applause filled the room, rising quickly, surrounding her from every side. People stood up, one after another. Faces changed. Expressions softened. Some smiled gently. Others wiped their eyes without shame. The sound was loud now, but it felt different then. Before, this noise carried respect. The waitress stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak, as if they were not fully ready to hold her. She bowed her head slightly, unsure of what else to do. Her face burned with emotion. Her throat felt tight. She did not smile. She did not cry. Not yet. The manager moved toward her. His steps were slower than usual. His voice shook when he spoke, as if he was afraid to break something fragile. That was incredible. She nodded. No words came to her. The guests looked at her now, really looked at her. Not as a waitress, not as part of the background, but as a person who had given them something real, something honest, something they did not expect. Someone asked her name. She shook her head, gently, and took a step back. She did not need to explain herself. She walked away from the piano, her steps quiet once again. But something had changed. Her shoulders felt lighter. Her breath felt deeper. Her back felt straighter. She returned to the service area and picked up a tray. The familiar weight settled into her hands. Her fingers still trembled, but this time it was from release, not fear. The rest of the night passed differently. People spoke to her kindly. Some thanked her softly, their voices sincere. Others simply nodded with respect as she passed. No one snapped their fingers anymore. No one treated her like part of the furniture. She finished her work quietly, just as she always had. When the hall finally emptied, the lights dimmed. The chairs were stacked neatly. The marble floor reflected only shadows now. The noise of the evening felt far away. The waitress stood alone near the piano. One last time. The hall was empty, silent. She did not touch the piano. She did not need to. She smiled. Not because her life had suddenly changed. Not because she had been discovered. Not because the future was suddenly clear. But because, for one moment, she had been heard. And sometimes, that is enough.